Juan from Corpus Christi, Texas. Should all targeting calls in the playoffs be reviewed by the NCAA to confirm or overturn targeting, to uphold the suspension for the next game when it occurs in the second half, especially in marginal situations? Okay, what Juan's talking about is Xavier Lucas the other night. I think early in the second half of the game against Ole Miss, he got ejected for targeting. That means he misses the second half of a playoff game and misses the first half of the national championship game. And it's stupid. It's a very stupid problem that college football has right now, but it's really a problem football in general has. And the problem is no one knows what targeting is. We do have rules, and there are parameters and bullet points and indicators. Those are all written down. No one knows when they see it. Imagine we're going to eject kids from games, but we don't really know what we're ejecting them for. There's no consistency in the way it's applied, even conference to conference. The thing's enforced differently. Here's what we do know. Most commonsensical people who are watching college football, or as you might know them, fans, we're watching it every Saturday, and every one of us knows, at the best, this rule seems way too hazy to be ejecting players for flying in violation of it. So, a couple of things. Yes, I would be okay with the approach that you talked about there, but not just for the playoffs. I think that this thing should be able to be appealed no matter what. Week 3 to week 4. You could be playing a game coming up the next week in week 4 that will define your season. So why should it only be able to be appealed and potentially overturned in the playoff? Like, I'd go a step further than that. It's insane we're throwing guys out of games, though. I was watching this the other night. I was so irate. I was there for Miami Ole Miss, and I watch it with my eyes. And then targeting gets called because you're just conditioned now. Anytime a guy puts a form hit on someone, anytime there's like high-level impact, just expect the flag. So there it is. There's the flag. And you think you know what you saw, but then you got to look up at the monitor or the big screen if you're in the stadium, and you got to make sure you saw what you saw. And I did. It happens all too often. What happens is if you're a defender, the game's moving 1,000,000 miles an hour. And as a defender, when you're going to strike a ball carrier, whether it be a receiver going up for a pass, whether it be a quarterback scrambling, or whether it be a running back coming straight at you, there's a certain point where you commit your body to contact, where you initiate the hit, past which you have no control. Now, it's a split second, and when they slow it down, frame by frame, it looks like it takes a long time. But when you're moving, at the speed of automobiles in a school zone, you commit yourself to contact, and a lot of times what happens is a ball carrier or a receiver will be in the process of making a catch, or they're in the process of lowering themselves. And here's what it looks like. You commit your body to the hit, and you're aiming for their chest or their midsection, and then they lower themselves, and you end up making contact in the shoulder area or the head area, and you get flagged for it. And it's insane. And there's not an ounce of malicious intent. In fact, the guy's trying to execute making a hit or making a tackle the exact way he's been taught. And that's what rubs me the wrong way. Seeing guys ejected from games for playing football. Seeing guys ejected from games for doing exactly what they've been coached to do. Because a lot of times you want to go over to an official and you want to say, hey, could you do me a favor? You just ejected my guy from a game, and all he did is what we've coached him to do. Could you please, as he walks to the locker room, tell him what he should have done? You know what those officials will do if they're honest? Shrug their shoulders. I don't necessarily blame it on the officials. They're only enforcing what they've been told to enforce. I don't put it on the shoulders of officials. I put it on the shoulders of people who went 5 miles further than they needed to when they rewrote these rules several years ago because they were terrified of what was going to happen to them in court because concussions in football were the big story in the news. And so they got really scared, and they went way further than they needed to get out ahead of being blamed for not taking enough action. Hey guys, do me one favor. Check and see if you're subscribed to the channel. If you are, great. If you're not, it's that easy. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't sign you up for anything. It just helps us do the show this way forever. All right, back to the clip. But what they did is they really etched in stone something that they couldn't go back on. I've talked to guys about this. I'm not ignorant to this. I understand exactly what the nature of the rule is, what the purpose of the rule is, and why you guys are terrified of going backwards. Because if you go backwards an inch on it, if you even redefine or rewrite the rules, or you just add some protocols, you're terrified that one day in court, a jury will look at you and a skilled lawyer will convince them that you eased up restrictions on concussion protocol, and now you're on the hook for untold billions of dollars in damages. I get it. It doesn't mean I have to be happy about it, and it doesn't mean there still aren't actions that can be taken. Because if you look at football today, it's never been safer than it is right now. You've never had less a risk of concussion than you do right now. The rule has had its intended effect. It's fundamentally changed the way that the game's played. Do you see how many receivers are totally carefree going up over the middle now? Do you know why that is? Because a 19-year-old kid, a 19-year-old receiver, or a 19-year-old safety / corner / linebacker have now grown up in an entire era from their peewee days to middle school to high school and now college where the game's been officiated that way, where rules have been enforced that way. So everyone's been conditioned to play the game that way. You're more likely to concuss yourself hitting your head on the ground than you are being hit by a safety now. And yet, ignorantly, we're still tossing guys out of games. Xavier Lucas missed the second half of a playoff game the other night and will miss the first half of a national championship game for committing the crime of playing football, basically. I don't know what else to say. I'm using him. There are a million examples of this. So what I'd love to see is very commonsensical. Basketball's done it for a long time. Flagrant 1, flagrant 2, essentially understanding there are tiers of fouls here. Because when we watch a football game, I think we can all understand the difference between incidental contact, in some cases that a defender could not avoid, versus a malicious hit. And there aren't many malicious hits that are made, but the ones that are made, everybody knows it. When one of them's made, go on Twitter. Everyone goes out of their way to point it out. Everyone goes out of their way to say, get that guy out of there. That right there, there's no place for that in college football. It polices itself, basically. So that's your flagrant 2. Get him out. There's no place for it. There never has been, never will be. But where there is plenty of room, or where there is plenty of room for, is to understand something just happened here. Maybe we even want to throw a flag on it. There is no way that kid should be ejected from this game. There is room for that. Secondly, I would love a more rigorous appeals process where you got a panel of people. Like in my opinion, if a kid's going to have a half of a game stripped away from him, you ought to have a panel of 10 people with at least 8 of them agreeing on the ruling. I don't know how you feel the panel should work. And then the third one is I would love full transparency on that. I know we don't seem to be in the business of full transparency with any decisions being made in college football, whether they be rules or whether they be in the name of officiating. But when I'm college football commissioner, we're going to have full transparency on how that playoff rankings process works, how officiating works, and then if we ever have an appeals process that is legitimate on targeting ejections, let's make that fully transparent as well. After all, what is there really to hide if we're doing things the right way?